Aeron knew some Farwynds, a queer folk who held some land on the westernmost shore of Great Wick and the scattered isles beyond, rocks so small that most could support but a single household. Of those, the Lonely Light was the most distant, 8 days' sail to the northwest, amongst rookeries of seals and sea lions and the boundless grey oceans. The Farwynds there were even queerer than the rest. Some said they were skin changers, unholy creatures who could take on the forms of sea lions, walruses, even spotted whales. The wolves of the wild sea, the thoughts of Aeron Greyjoy. A Feast for Crows, Chapter 19, The Drowned Man. House Farwynd of the Lonely Light is a branch of House Farwynd from the Iron Islands, and by far one of the most unique houses in not just the Iron Islands, but Westeros as a whole. Their seat is the Lonely Light, a small group of 13 tiny islands, approximately 8 days' sail to the northwest of Great Wick, depending on the season, weather and tides. Even so, given the unpredictability of sailing that far out into the Sunset Sea, even a simple journey can be perilous for an experienced sailor, even among the Ironborn themselves. The Farwynds blazon their arms with per fessy below a black sea with a crest line, and a black longship, outlined against the setting sun on dark red and orange. Another branch of the family, House Farwynd of Sealskin Point, holds lands on the westernmost shore of Great Wick, including its namesake seat. However, we know very little about this branch of the family, or even which of the branches is the original senior branch, since the builder of the Lonely Light would have had to have sailed from the Iron Islands to find it, causes some speculation that the Sealskin Point branch was the original senior branch. But unlike most cadet houses, this new Lonely Light branch outgrew the original to the extent most assumed the Lonely Light has always been the most senior. However, given how little information we have on this subject, the information may develop and change as we learn more. The seat of the Lonely Light is perhaps one of the most fascinating, given its nature. It's located technically on the westernmost island of the Iron Islands. However, given the sheer distance from the islands proper, some fairly argue it should be considered its own entity altogether. Regardless of the remoteness of the location, the islands that make up the Lonely Light are considered part of the domain of the Iron Islands, meaning the Farwynds have often sworn themselves to the High Kings of the Isles, and now House Greyjoy since Aegon's conquest. A beacon blazes at almost all times on the roof of the island's namesake keep, which is the seat of House Farwynd. 1,000 years after the time of King Brandon Stark, the Burner, Ironmen sailing out of Great Wick were blown off course in a generational storm to the cluster of tiny islands, 8 days' sail from the closest known shore. The captain built a tower and a beacon there, took the name Farwynd, and declared the Lonely Light his seat. If the tales are to be believed as told, it adds more uncertainty to the seniority of this Lonely Light branch of House Farwynd, given it is said the captain took the name Farwynd. While the Lonely Light itself is considered a small island, the other 13 small islands are no bigger than a handful of clusters of rocks around the main island. However, given how west the islands lay into the Sunset Sea, they were for a long time the most western landmass known to man. However, in 56 AC, the famed sailor and explorer Alyssa Farman discovered 3 new islands much further west than the Lonely Light. She named them Aegon, Bisenya, and Rhaenys. And unlike the bleak and inhospitable Lonely Light, these new islands had lush vegetation, fresh water springs, and warm weather, thanks to them being much further south. However, these new islands were so far away from the shipping lanes they held no tactical purpose and thus had never been settled, leaving the Lonely Light as the westernmost settled islands. The Lonely Light is surrounded by rookeries of seals and sea lions, with the people who lived there often using them as a source of food and clothing. The Farwynds themselves, and the few small folk they rule over, and who call these meagre islands their home, are regarded as odd and strange people, even to their Ironborn king. A comparison could be how the men of the Riverlands and the North view the Crannog men of the Neck. Some claim the Farwynds from the Lonely Light lie with seals to bring forth half-human children, while others that they are in fact skin changers, who can take the form of sea lions, walruses, and spotted whales. There are some sources that have also suggested that the Farwynds are worshippers of the Merlings, an aspect of the religion of the drowned god that even the other Ironborn consider too dark to practice. Merlin worship is one of the darker religious aspects in the known world, and involves regular blood sacrifice, which is said to give the Farwynds supernatural abilities in return. The Andals and the Faith wiped out all of the other Merlin worshippers, but given the remote location, it is possible it survived on the Lonely Light. How much of this is fact is unclear. His eyes, Aeron saw, were now grey, now blue, as changeable as the sea. Mad eyes, he thought, fool's eyes. The vision he spoke of was doubtless a snare set by the Storm God to lure the Ironborn to destruction. The Thoughts of Aeron Greyjoy, A Feast for Crows, Chapter 19, The Drowned Man. The current Lord of the Lonely Light is Gilbert Farwynd. Very little is known about him or his family, but Gilbert is described as tall and spare, with a clean-shaven lantern jaw. Gilbert's eyes appear to change from grey to blue, like the sea, depending on who you ask. House Farwynd first makes a physical appearance during the events of A Feast for Crows in the wake of the War of Five Kings, after the death of Lord Balon Greyjoy, whom was technically the self-proclaimed King of the Isles and North at this time. Lord Gilbert Farwynd is one of the many men to put forth his own name at the Kingsmoot held on Old Wick for the Ironborn to choose their new king. He was supported by his sons, Giles, Yagon and Johan, who acted as his champions. He promised to lead the Ironborn to lands beyond the Sunset Sea, where every man would be a king and every wife a queen. His gifts are considered poor, his words mad, and his claim is dismissed very quickly, as most of the Ironborn men believe it was impossible to sail any further west into the Sunset Sea and ever return, as all attempts thus far by not just the Ironborn sailors, but sailors around the world, ended in death and ruin. Ultimately, Euron Greyjoy, Balon's younger brother, is elected at the Kingsmoot and dons the Driftwood crown, chosen over the daughter of Balon, Asha Greyjoy. There is only one other member of House Farwynd we have any knowledge of, an unnamed Lord Farwynd, who attended the Great Council of 101 AC to choose the heir of King Jaehaerys I Targaryen prior to the outbreak of the Dance of the Dragons. How this lord voted in the council is not known. Until we get more information, that is all we currently know of House Farwynd.